A Lombard RAC of a very different style this year, of course, largely as a result of the terrible accident in Corsica earlier in the year, in which the brilliant young Finnish driver Henry Toivonen and his co-driver were killed. Feast of the governing body drastically changed the rules. In response to that, the distance was shortened by 700 miles over last year. All the night stages were cancelled, and this was the last year we were to see the Group B supercars, packing 400 or 500 brake horsepower. So a very tough test of a driver's skill and nerve. 45 special stages govern the final placings. So the start was in Bath. The cars had 1,500 miles to run over England, Scotland and Wales, with overnight stops planned in Harrogate, Edinburgh and Liverpool before the run back to Bath on the final day. On November the 16th, Sunday morning, the first car, driven by Timo Salonen, the reigning world champion, pulled onto the start line at Bath. Day one, of course, is Spectator Day, when the special stages are carefully selected in public parks and stately homes to allow the spectators to see the cars and the stars. Typical of them was special stage 1 at Badminton, 1.9 miles of narrow tarmac across the parkland, but in this rain, very slick indeed, and with lots of tricky bends.
There could hardly have been a less friendly start to the rally than at Badminton. The rain made the famous eventing venue even more treacherous than anticipated, and world champion Timo Salonen was quickly showing his sideways cross-country skills. But it was the second man, Stig Blomqvist, who set the pace in the Ford RS200. Stig is the only past winner in the event, and he set an uncatchable time of 2 minutes 9 seconds. Marco Elaine just has to do well in this rally to keep his championship chances alive, but the Rosberg of rallying was soon sliding haplessly over the grass. There were 10,000 hardy spectators here to see the stars in action, and they were rewarded with this full focus spin by Callie Grundle in the Ford. There wasn't much breathing space between Badminton and the next Parkland stage, one of 9 to be held on this slippery Sunday, covering over 27 miles. Stig Blomqvist led the rally from Salonen and Kankkunen as he started a 3-mile mixed-surface Cirencester test, but this time he had to settle for 4th place behind 3 of the sure-footed Peugeots. The 27-year-old World Championship leader Kankkunen, winner of 3 rallies already this year, was in flying form. He was 4 seconds faster than any of his rivals and led the rally by 6 seconds on the way to Sutton Park. But there was no joy for Harry Toivonen, the younger brother of last year's winner, the late and much-missed Henry Toivonen. Harry lost his Metro right in front of our cameras and had to go back and start again. He told us, "At least I was lucky, I didn't hit anything." Now the rally headed up the motorway to the Midlands. This is a lady driver, Louise Aitken-Walker, who was discovered by a Ford Find a Lady Driver scheme. On her way to Sutton Park, which is always one of the most popular stages and attracts huge crowds. Unfortunately, the rains came again as Salonen splashed through the park, lying 4th. Tony Pond was earning the cheers of the 11,000 crowd. He was 5th fastest and 5th overall. Can he repeat his 3rd place of last year? Kankkunen had to settle for 2nd best here, but held his overall lead. Callie Grundle was a long way behind team leader Blomqvist. He was 7 seconds slower here. Mikael Eriksson was putting up a powerful performance. But the star here was Mikael Sunderstrom, fastest by 3 seconds. There were 12,000 spectators waiting for the leaders at Chatsworth, the 6th stage, 3.56 miles of a narrow, slippery test. Stig Blomqvist was really on song. He moved into 2nd place here with a 4th fastest time, and Sundstrom slipped to 3rd, 3 seconds behind him. Tony Pond has decided he might quit rallying soon. let's hope not. He was superb here, third quickest and still fourth overall. Kankkunen, still complaining of petrol fumes, was fastest to keep his lead by 11 seconds over Blomqvist. As the sun set over Chatsworth, Mikael Eriksson entered the stage in 7th place, desperate for a vital top 3 placing. But this incident didn't help him. He dropped a place, but he didn't drop into the lake.
So at the end of the first day, Kankkunen has just got his nose in front of his arch-rival Marco Alén in the Lancia. Pondy is tucked in 3rd place in the Metro. Behind him, Stig Blomqvist in the Ford RS200. And then in 5th place, Timo Salonen, the reigning world champion, in another Peugeot. So 4 different makes of cars in the top 5. I managed to grab a few words with Kankkunen after he locked his car up in the Parc Fermé to ask him about problems he'd had with the cap coming off the petrol tank and fumes getting into the cockpit.
Only on special stage number 5, the petrol cap was open and about 5 litre petrol came into the car. And that was quite bad because we have to stop 200 meters before the finish and open the doors to get some air there, because I couldn't even see the road anymore. But after that, it's gone well. And waiting for tomorrow when we see the proper stages.
The first proper forest stage of the rally was Stang near Scotch Corner. Timo Salonen has not had the best of years as world champion, with just 1 win in his native Finland. But he was in great form here, 2 seconds faster than any other driver, with a 3-minute 25-second time. Malcolm Wilson seemed at home on this bumpy forest stage. He promoted himself to 7th place overall, with a 3-minute 27-second flyer. Stig Blomqvist changed a turbo on his Ford RS200 before starting the stage, and then proceeded to thank the Ford mechanics with a time of 3 minutes 28 seconds. Kankkunen increased the gap over Marco Alén here. He was 3 seconds faster than Alén's Lancia. Mikael Eriksson was another scorching Scandinavian. His time of 3 minutes 28 seconds moved him into 6th place overall. Kalle Grundle has given the Ford team their best placing this year, 3rd in Sweden. He put up one of his best times here and put himself back on the leaderboard in 10th place. Jimmy McRae was obviously looking forward to arriving in his native Scotland in a strong position. You can just see the enthusiasm as he holds on to 9th place with another great time here, 9th fastest. Marco Alén has only had 1 win since 1984 at San Remo, but he has stayed faithful to Lancia and always gives good value. Tony Pond was really fighting back in the Metro. He remains one of the nimblest and the neatest drivers. Just watch his style here as he clocked 10th equal fastest time.
One of the great qualities of the Lombard RAC is the sheer range of drivers it pulls in, from the crack international stars to 2 Bradford policemen in a rebuilt Lada, for example. It's a sort of rallying mecca. It pulls them in from all over the world. Sue Baker managed to catch up with one of them, a New Zealander called Tony Teasdale, in for the first time, driving a Metro 6R4.
Tony, your first RAC and a bit of a change from your native New Zealand. How are you finding it?
Well, I'm finding it a bit hard to come to grips with, actually, but nevertheless, we knew it would be difficult, so we're just trying to keep a reasonable sort of a pace that's safe. So most of we want to be at the end, and we figured it's still possible to be there in a reasonable place. So when we feel a bit more confident, we'll go a bit faster, hopefully.
Are you finding some of the stages rather tough?
They're not tough, but they're just different, and you never quite know what's the next corner, of course, so have to be a little bit more careful.
What's the knack to being quick on this type of terrain with the 6R4?
Well, I think the difference for me is that I own this car, and it's cost us a lot of money to be here, so we have to have something to show for it at the end, so we're not too interested in rolling into the trees. So I suppose our approach is a bit different from the works drivers in that respect. I've got to sell this at the end of the day.
What do you reckon it's cost you as a private entrant to do this rally?
I don't know. I'll find out when I get home, unless the bank manager rings me first.
The fourth stage of the day took the cars into Walk Forest for the 6.85-mile Shepherd Shield stage. Timo Salonen had dropped to 6th place after Hamsterley. He climbed back to 5th place after this stage, where he was again the fastest. Stig Blomqvist has suffered a puncture at Hamsterley, and he was now lying way back in 9th place. Tony Pond was 5th fastest on this stage, but the Metro was still back in 10th position. Marco Elaine was only 10th fastest here and was now 27 seconds behind Kankkunen. Kalle Grandel was improving all the time, 9th fastest here and 8th overall. Juha Kankkunen was consolidating his lead, 2nd fastest here and seemingly totally untroubled. The performance of the day at this point was undoubtedly young Ericsson, now lying 3rd overall, but chased strongly by Malcolm Wilson. The thousands who flocked to Kielder Forest saw the rally reach crunch point in more ways than one. There were punches and spins galore, which saw Salonen emerge, sharing the lead with Marco Elaine. Tony Pond accelerated back to 8th place. Just look at Marco Elaine, happily sharing the lead. Kalle Grandel somehow kept the Ford in 9th place, despite a puncture. But poor old Kankkunen had a nightmare, dropping back to 3rd place. Ericsson holding 4th place. Stig Blomqvist, now 5th. But watch Carlson's Group A Mazda, now a tremendous 10th. Michael Sundström was 6th. And here comes Jimmy McRae, heading to Scotland in 7th place in the Metro.
Well, after the infamous Ogre Hill stage, nasty by name and definitely nasty by nature, Timo Salonen, the reigning world champion, had moved up into the lead. Actually, for the very first time in this rally, it was a joint lead with Markku Alén. But David Llewellyn in his Metro 6R4 had an unhappy experience when he was stopped on the A1 for speeding and for going up the hard shoulder. He was trying to get round some traffic. Now, not only does he face prosecution from the police, but the rally stewards met and decided that they would fine him £120. Actually, though, he was quite lucky because they could have excluded him from the rally. Harry Toyne, late Henry's brother, he lost no less than 10 minutes during the day changing tyres for punctures. At one stage, he had to call on spectators to lift up the corner of the car so that he could put on a new wheel. And someone else who did a lot of changing was Terry Haywood in car number 97, a Sunbeam Talbot. He changed no less than 5 half shafts. It doesn't say much for their quality, does it? Although it is a very tough rally. Russell Morgan, sadly, he was leading the important Group N production car class, and he had a broken drive shaft. Very unlucky that. His Mercedes had to drop out of the rally. But the lead in that class was taken by David Maslin in his Mazda 323. And that's the new four-wheel drive car that everyone reckons is going to be very promising for next year's rally season.
So at the end of the second day, 22 stages run, here's what the top 5 look like. We've got a new leader, Mikael Eriksson, the young Swede in a Lancia. Behind him, absolutely neck and neck, Timo Salonen and Marco Alen. Hotly pursued by Juha Kankkunen, then in 5th place, Michael Sundström in another Peugeot. By now the field was down to 117 runners, and sadly, out had gone the brilliantly exciting young British driver, Mark Lovell. The Conrod had broken in his Ford RS200 and the car had burned out. Fortunately, neither he nor his co-driver were hurt.
There were 2 hours of gentle trundling before the drivers were plunged back into the forest in the Scottish lowlands. Overnight leader Mikael Eriksson had told us there are too many bends ahead and too many good drivers behind to think of a victory yet. And sure enough, the lead began to seesaw as soon as the quick Scandinavian quintet reached the forests of Craik and Castleower to start the day in earnest. Timo Salonen in the Peugeot started the day 2 seconds behind Eriksson, but was soon to find himself threatened by his Peugeot teammate Kankkunen and the Lancia star Marco Alen. He was 4th after these 2 stages. Juha Kankkunen had a puncture at Craik, yet still set fastest time. He had built up a 9-second lead over Eriksson by the time he emerged from the Castleower stage. There were problems at Craik though for Ingvar Carlsen, who was not only leading Group A, but had started a day in 17th place. The intercooler split on his Mazda, and he lost 50 seconds to his arch-rival for Group A honours, Lassi Lampi in the Audi. This is 30-year-old Kenneth Eriksson in his Volkswagen Golf GTI. Already a world record-holding motorcyclist, he proved here why he had become the first Group A world champion on 4 wheels. Despite all her problems on the first day, Louise Aitken-Walker was still going well in her Nissan 240 RS. She was lying 25th overall, 1 minute 46 seconds ahead of her lady rival, Suzanne Kotelinski. They call this car the surprising Skoda, but perhaps it was no surprise that Ladislav Krecek was leading his class. The team are aiming for their incredible 14th consecutive class win in this rally. At this stage, he was 26th overall. Twigleys was the 3rd forest stage of the day. It offered hazards of gravel, fire breaks and narrow bridges. But Mikael Eriksson was 4th fastest over the 6.23 miles. Timo Salonen was the quickest here, averaging just over 60 miles an hour, 2 seconds faster than his closest rival, Kankkunen. Marco Alen, still in 3rd place overall, but he could only manage 7th fastest time, 8 seconds slower than the leading Peugeot. This is Michael Sundström, popularly known as Mickey Finn. He was 9th equal with Blomqvist at this stage. Jimmy McRae and Tony Pond were chasing each other through the forest in 6th and 7th spots. They would share 5th equal time here, but no wonder the Finns were doing well. The wet, greasy conditions were reminiscent of the Thousand Lakes Rally. This is typical Tony Pond in action.
Chris Lord, you had an exciting day yesterday, we read.
Well, it's been exciting straight from the word go, actually, Tony. We had a major off on Cirencester Park, the 2nd stage, which dropped us down to 82nd. We gradually climbed up to the start to 42nd yesterday morning, decided to just keep on trucking. And then we came across young Mr. Wilson parked up at the side of one of the Kielder stages.
Because then Malcolm Wilson went off?
Yeah, it was off and it didn't look too bad enough, and I figured 3 or 4 minutes would probably be all it would take to get him back on. Unfortunately, it took 10. We couldn't get the tow rope on, and then this car stalled and we had to push start it and what have you. But once you're into it, you've got a commitment. You can't very well say, well, tough, you know, maybe somebody else will stop. But I'm delighted that it's still going.
Hello, Ken.
Hi.
How's it? Enjoying it?
Yeah, great. Those last 3 stages were tremendous. Twigleys especially is fantastic.
Any problems at all?
Yesterday I had a little indiscretion and bent the suspension and the front wing a little bit, but didn't cost us too much time. And John Saint, these merry men got it going again, so no trouble.
Are you? Do you feel tired?
No, not at all. It's a lot easier than last year. Not a piece of cake, but it's a lot easier than last year. Very fresh.
The Kershope and Lowther stages brought snow, but also dramatic changes. Ericsson retook the lead here. He was 5 seconds faster than any other driver, but just look at the conditions. But Sweden's Stig Blomqvist was about to run out of luck. At the end of the Kershope stage, his engine was smoking, and he would walk sadly out of Lowther, his rally over, so there'll be a new name on the cup. In contrast, Jimmy McRae was going splendidly. He was fastest on the roads he knows so well, and emerged from Lowther 5th overall in his Metro. Tony Pond was not enjoying himself. 6 miles from the end of the Kershope stage, a front differential broke, and he dropped down to 8th place. Dayglow in the forest as Russell Brooks still pounds on in his Opel Manta. Let's take a look for a moment at the Group A battle. Ingvar Carlsson in the Mazda was struggling to make up for his early problems. Now he found himself 23 seconds behind his fiercest rival, Lassie Lampe, in the Audi Quattro. Withup on the edge of Lake Bassenthwaite offered a 3-mile challenge with some chilling fresh air corners. After all the dramas, it began to look as if Mikael Eriksson, second fastest here, would finish another day at the top of the leaderboard. World champion Timo Salonen was a full 4 seconds slower than Eriksson here, but still holding 3rd place. Marco Alain in the Lancia was sensational, 4 seconds faster than any other driver. Kankkunen had his hairiest moment of the day, teetering on the edge of disaster with some incredible two-wheel driving. He was still 3rd fastest on this stage. Mikael Sundström is once again amongst the pacemakers, proving he can handle the extra power of the full works car. Stig Blomqvist's sad departure left Kalle Grundle to carry the Ford flag. He consolidated his 6th place with an excellent time here at Witham. Welshman David Llewellyn was moving up the leaderboard too. 9th fastest on this stage, he was now 9th overall. Another Welshman going well was Glyn Jones in the Opel Manta. He finished 18th last year at his first attempt and was again 18th at the end of this stage. The 2 Grisdale Forest stages would take the cruise from Lake Coniston to Lake Windermere, but there would be little time for sightseeing. Mikael Eriksson was soon in trouble. He shot off a bend and hit a tree, severely damaging the front of the car and affecting its steering. He was soon off the road again and limped out of the Grisdale stages down in 3rd place. Timo Salonen had no such misfortune. He clocked a scorching 7 minutes 4 seconds to leapfrog back to the head of the rally.
So at the end of the 3rd day, 32 stages run, this is what the top 5 look like. In fact, it's the same 5 slightly reshuffled. Timo Salonen has charged into the lead, hotly pursued by Marco Alain. Eriksson has slipped back a little into 3rd place in the 2nd Lancia. Juha Kankkunen's in 4th place. No doubt glad to be there after his terrible roll in Grisdale, and Michael Sundström is hanging on to 5th place. During that roll, Kankkunen tore off the navigator's door. It always seems to be the navigators, and the big wing at the back end, and he smashed in the roof. As soon as they could, the mechanics pounced on the car and rebuilt it. Their biggest problem, apparently, was getting the regulation stickers off the old panels and making them stick onto the new ones. Sadly, Russell Brooks is out, a great finisher, of course, with a remarkable record of success in rallying in this country. He held a piston in Grisdale, and that was the end of his rally. For Louise Aitken-Walker fans, she's clawed away to 19th place, a very good position indeed, in her Nissan 240 RS. But perhaps the prize for the most resourceful man of the day should go to one John Corrie. He blew up in his larder very early in the day at which stage he whipped out his RAC card and called up their recovery service. When they arrived, they found his card was out of date. Nonetheless, they took him home. That's what rallying's all about.
The Welsh Forest of Penmachno did little for the tourist image. It was very wet, very slippery, and there were some big, threatening drops. By the time the survivors reached this hilly stage, Timo Salonen was still leading Marco Elaine by 8 seconds. Mikael Eriksson was third overall, fastest of the two Klakainog stages. Juha Kankkunen was nearly a minute behind his championship rival Elaine. Daylight would bring faster times, of course. And Jimmy McRae accused the organisers of moving the water from stage to stage. Per Eklund was the third Metro in the top 10. David Llewellyn's co-driver Phil Short said, "It's the first time I've done a stage down a river bed." Harold Demuth was taming the full-blooded Quattro horsepower in 11th place. Despite earlier mishaps, Harry Toivonen was now 12th in his Metro. 5 Metros in the first 12. Everyone is praising Louise Aitken-Walker's performance, 19th in the big Nissan 240. Ladislav Krajcek was on song for Skoda's 14th consecutive class win here. Yorkshireman Chris Lord, laughing as always and in 22nd spot. Coidy Brennan, another story of water everywhere, with a major mud problem for the backmarkers, who are, of course, the backbone of the rally. Timo Salonen splashed through in 3 minutes 22 seconds, the fastest time he would share with Marco Elaine. Juha Kankkunen had still not recovered from his Lakeland excursions and was 4 minutes behind Eriksson.
What have the Klakainog stages been like for you this morning?
They were okay for us, and very, very difficult. There was fog, wet, rain.
How tough is the fight up there at the top? Because there are only a few seconds splitting the first few drivers.
Well, they're still fighting, and we're still fighting down where we are. I wish we'd had the 3 minutes, because we'd have been fighting with them. That's the problem.
Yes. How much can you claw back now, do you think?
Well, you can't really. They're having a big fight, so they're trying everything, and we can just about do their time, so there's no way we're going to climb back with them. We just want to stay ahead of the group that we're playing with.
So what would you hope for the rest of the day? What sort of conditions?
Well, I'd hope for a total disaster in the Lancia and the Peugeot camp.
Is it true that you're the oldest competitor in this rally?
Yes, at 57 years of age, Eddie and I are the oldest two competitors, and we've been together 31 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, are you shaping up to it all right?
Yes, we seem to be shaping up to it quite well.
Do you find it tiring?
More hunger than tiring.
And how's the car going?
We're having problems with the gearbox, but otherwise fine. Angling very well and going very well.
And can you give me any idea how much is this car, how much does it cost you to prepare or anything?
Well, it cost £250 4 years ago, but we've spent a lot of hours on it and a lot of loving care.
Anyway, you're enjoying it?
Enjoying it very much indeed.
After that service halt, the cars went on to the first stage at Dovey. A long stage, almost 16 miles, very hilly, a mixture of fast straights and tight hairpins, and some treacherous broken sections.
Dovey has a fearsome reputation. It is virtually the Kielder of Wales and would cause almost as many problems. World champion Timo Salonen could have lost a lead here. He spun and was 20 seconds slower than the fastest car. Fortunately for him, Marco Elaine was not the fastest Lancia here. That honour belonged to this man, Michael Eriksson, with a time of 15 minutes, 5 seconds. Juha Kankkunen was reported to be unwell, with a suspected kidney stone problem. The championship chaser was certainly slower than in the earlier stages of the rally. But this stage belonged to Micke Sundström in the Peugeot. It was a shattering performance. He was 8 seconds faster than any other driver. Dovey 2 was a 13.7-mile stage, all gravel, twisty forest with a surface that would really test the cars. Timo Salonen was a full 5 seconds slower than the charging Alain on this second test. Mikael Eriksson was simply storming along in his Lancia. He was joint equal fastest with his team leader Alain. Marco Alain was, of course, trying to win the rally, but not at the risk of losing championship points. Tony Pond had to stop to change a wheel after a puncture. He lost 3 minutes and dropped to 7th. Per Eklund, now 9th, told us he missed the night stages. There's just no pleasing everyone. There were just 3 special stages left when the cars reached Tile. Now was a time for cool heads, not heroics. Juha Kankkunen now had no hope of overhauling Alain, barring technical mishaps. And it seems certain that the championship will be decided at the Olympus Rally at Washington State in America in December. Timo Salonen could not have given his European Peugeot fans a better farewell present. He was 12 seconds ahead of Alain and seemed confident of a 10th World Championship win. Ingvar Carlsson must have made Mazda feel very confident about their prospects for next season. With half the horsepower of the supercars, he was consistently in the top 15. And Lassi Lampi, despite struggling with a broken drive shaft earlier in the rally, had certainly demonstrated that the Group A Quattro Coupe could be a front-runner in next year's Rally Championships.
Meanwhile, out in the waterlogged Welsh forest, the 3 British favourites were battling to stay among the top 10. Tony Pond delighted the spectators on the 4th Clocaenog stage when he set the fastest time. But a little later on Dovey, he was unlucky enough to have a puncture, and that dropped him down from battling for 5th place into 7th place. Now, right behind him at that stage was Jimmy McRae, running 8th, looking very cheerful and saying that his car was behaving beautifully. But David Llewellyn, the local lad from Wales, was having a difficult time in the Welsh stages. He had unpredictable brakes on his Metro 6R4 after hitting a boulder and damaging a brake pipe. He said that made it very difficult going into corners, not knowing whether the brakes were going to work or not. Now, the rally's good Samaritan, Chris Lord, you remember earlier on in the rally, he rescued Malcolm Wilson from a ditch by towing him out with his Audi Quattro. He was having his problems today as well. The gear lever came away in his hand in the Quattro, and he had to resort to changing gear with a screwdriver. Louise Aitken-Walker was driving very creditably today. People were saying she looked brilliant in some of the stages, and she was coasting back into Bath in, we think, 18th place, which is quite remarkable when you consider that she dropped right down to 145th on day one after she had a crash on the Sutton Park stage. Oh, and plucky Ken Ridley, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, in his Toyota Corolla. He's coming back into Bath among the finishers. He's had a good day in the Welsh stages, and we think he's going to come in 75th place.
But at the top of the field, they were still battling it out to the bitter end. Poor Michael Sundstrom had to follow Peugeot team orders and let Juha Kankkunen up into third place to help him in his World Championship chase. Then Marco Alain made a dreadful mistake and chose the wrong tyres for this long stage in Rigos, leaving Timo Salonen, who had driven so superbly all through the rally, the winner. William Woolard was waiting for him at the finish.
And at the end of the street, I can see the lead car, which has Timo Salonen, this year's winner of the Lombard RAC, making his way to the finishing line.
Making through 1,585 miles, 45 seconds saving, 3
Can I give you a stick, Mike?
Timo Salonen arrived at the start not only as the outgoing world champion, but also bidding farewell to the Peugeot team, for whom he has had 2 glorious years. Next season, he will probably be driving a Group A Mazda, so this was possibly the last chance to see him using the incredible 500+ horsepower of the pace-setting Peugeot 205.
The end of yet another Lombard RAC Rally. Shorter this time, no night stages. Many thought perhaps they might have taken too much out of the rally, but it proved yet again to be a rally of tremendous tension and drama. This is the final leaderboard. Timo Salonen there, a worthy winner, 1 minute 22 seconds ahead of Marco Alain. Alain ahead of Kankkunen, which is the position he wished to achieve, of course, to retain his position in the World Championship race. Michael Sundstrom, a very good position for him in 4th place. Kalle Grundl bringing the Ford up there to 5th. Tony Pond doing brilliantly to bring the Metro, his ailing Metro, into that 6th position. Well, there it is, the end of another Lombard RAC Rally. Shorter, no night stages. Many people thought they'd taken too much out of it, but it proved again to be a rally of tremendous tension and drama. We still don't know who the world champion is, either Alain or Kankkunen. That remains to be decided. There's no doubt, however, who proved himself over the past 4 days to be a truly worthy champion, Timo Salonen in the Peugeot. That's all from us from the finishing line here in Bath.